Hey everybody, it's Perry with BouncerTips, and today I wanted to do something a little bit differently. I wanted to talk a little bit about some things that are in the news currently that affect the nightlife security industry. So stay tuned with me. Hey everybody, my name is Perry. I'm a nightlife security professional as well as the director of security at a large Phoenix nightclub. Here at BouncerTips, we talk about tips, tricks, and we talk about the tools that we use here in the nightlife security industry. If this is the type of content that you're interested in, please make sure you hit that subscribe button. Also make sure you hit that little notification bell so you get updates of future content. Now typically here at BouncerTips, I give tutorial videos on how to handle situations inside your nightclub. But today I want to do something a little bit different. Recently, we've had a couple of stories, big-time stories in the news that I wanted to cover a little bit, talk a little bit about them, and see what we can do as a bouncer community to help the people in our industry, as well as give some ideas on how we can fix some situations. And the first story I want to talk about is the Borderline Bar and Grill mass shooting. For those of you that may not be aware, last Wednesday night there was a tragic shooting in Thousand Oaks, California at the Borderline Pub and Grill that took the lives of 12 individuals. According to reports, the first shots came in at about 11:20 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. This was a lone gunman shooting, somebody that approached the bar, first initially shooting one of our brethren, a bouncer, at the front door. The gunman also shot the young woman who was working the counter just inside the door. My understanding, that would probably be somebody taking cover charge. Unfortunately, the gunman killed her. The gunman then proceeded to go into the club and randomly started shooting individuals inside the club, and my understanding is several other security officers were hurt or injured in this particular event. A few moments later, the Ventura County Sheriff Sergeant Ron Hewless and a California Highway Patrol officer headed into the bar after hearing more shots. As they entered through the front door, Hullis was struck by bullets. The Highway Patrol officer with them stepped back and pulled Hullis from the line of fire and secured his post until more officers came. The lone gunman continued firing inside the club, and unfortunately he was able to kill 12 individuals inside the establishment, including the police officer. The shooter, a 28-year-old Marine veteran, also took his own life on the scene. Now, I won't name the shooter as I feel it's a situation where these guys are copycatting each other, and I don't want to give any sort of credence to the guys that are perpetrating these type of crimes. According to officials, 21 other people were treated and released from hospitals Thursday morning. It's unclear whether they were gunshot wounds or just injuries from trying to exit the club, such as going through windows with broken glass, cuts, minor cuts and abrasions, things along those lines. But as you can tell, it was a very tragic situation. So what are my thoughts on what happened and what we can do to prevent these type of situations in the future? Well, first of all, I want to give my condolences to the families and the people that lost loved ones in this tragic event. But I also want to give my sincere sympathy to those people that were victims in this particular event, because they're going to be dealing with this for a long time to come. Now, I don't know if there's anything that could have been done, but I'd be lying if I told you that this isn't something that I often think about at my particular establishment. There's been many nights I've woken up in the middle of the night worrying about just this type of scenario. Now, this is a circumstance that I've thought about quite often at my club, and I've actually done some game planning and thought about different ways to get people out of the club. But there's really not much in a particular situation like this where you've got a gunman walking in and just randomly shooting people where you're going to be able to do much. The first tip that I can suggest on this particular situation is take care of yourself. In a situation like this, your personal safety and the safety of the people that you're closest to are the utmost important. If you can find a way to get out of that club, take cover, get low, and do what you can to help other people get out of the establishment. As a bouncer, I know your job is to protect people, but in this particular situation, this is a situation where you need to get out yourself to protect your life so you can help others once the situation is over. The second tip I can give is to keep an eye on your parking lot and the perimeter of your building. Keep an eye out for people that are acting irrationally. You want to make sure that if you see somebody that's acting irrationally or showing signs of behavior that is just not normal, that you make note of it and raise your level of awareness so you can meet any threat that may come to the door. Third thing I can recommend is keeping an eye out for any sort of suspicious bulges on their person in areas that may conceal a weapon. For example, in their waistline, if you're seeing any sort of suspicious bulges, if they have excessively baggy shirt, if you're noticing something that might be on the waistline. Also, if they're wearing a jacket and you get a side profile of them, look out for tenting, meaning they might have some sort of weapon underneath their arm and you'll see a protrusion of the material sticking out from where the weapon is actually pushing against the back of the jacket. Another thing to look out for is typically when somebody's carrying a weapon, they're going to touch for it or cup it just to make sure that that weapon is in the place that they believe it's supposed to be. But to be quite honest, there's not a lot you can do if somebody's coming to your door with bad intentions. To be quite honest, I don't really have many more options to give you other than I have recently reached out to some of my friends in law enforcement who have dealings with active shooter situations and actually give courses to people in the nightlife security industry as well as the festival community on active shooters. I've already reached out to some of my friends, and in the very near future, I'll actually be putting on an interview with some of those folks so we can get some better ideas of how we can handle this as a bouncer community. So stay tuned for that and make sure you hit that subscribe and bell button so you get notifications of when that does come out. The second story I want to talk about is the bouncer in Chicago, Illinois that was shot accidentally by police officers after a shooting inside of his club. According to the story, a group of men were asked to leave by the security of the club. This particular club, which is in suburban Chicago, has armed security guards at the establishment. The group was asked to leave, and a few minutes later they came back with weapons. According to reports, some of the shooters fled, and a security guard named Jemel Roberson captured one of the persons, held him down to the ground with his gun in his back, and unfortunately, when the police were called, came to the scene, and when they got there, they fatally shot the security officer by mistake. Now, what are some of my thoughts on this particular event? First off, my condolences to the family of Jemel Roberson, who was the security guard that was shot and killed by the police officers on this event. Anytime we lose a brother in this industry, I want to make sure that we recognize that brethren that we lost. Going forward on this channel, if we lose a brethren in the nightlife security industry, I'm going to do my best to give my condolences to that particular person, honor their memory, and also try to give a link to a fund to help the family of the victim that was in this particular tragedy. So what are my thoughts on this particular situation? First off, it's a real tragedy, and my heart goes out to Jamel's family. We've lost one of our brethren. Obviously, this guy was a massive hero. He was doing his best to protect his guests inside of his club, and that's really what our task is in this industry. But unfortunately, he lost his life. Now, there's some controversy around this, whether he was shot because he's an African-American man by a police officer, and there are making some claims that that may have been the motivation behind the shots being fired. I have a different take, however, and when I'm looking at this particular situation, now I don't know all the details yet, and I'm sure more will come out as I understand the Illinois State Police are investigating this particular event. But what I think may have happened, and again, this is just my, observation of what stories are coming through. When law enforcement receives a call that there's a shootout at a nightclub, especially only several days after a nightclub shooting like the one in California, the officer might be in a different state of mind, thinking that it's an active shooter situation. And when he got to the scene, he knows a gentleman with the gun, and he decided to take action. The typical response to an active shooter situation nowadays is not wait around, is look for the person that is doing the shooting and trying to take them out, as it will be an attempt to try to save lives. And again, I don't know the scenario or the situation completely, but there's a possibility that that's what the officer had going through his mind when he came up on the scene. Does that mean the officer was potentially justified in shooting Jemel? Absolutely not. The law enforcement officer needed to use better situational awareness and also be more observant to the fact that the security officer had security written on his cap. But at this point in time, I cannot say I believe it was a racially motivated shot. However, if it was, I want the officer prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. While I can't say that the shot was justified, however, I can't also make the leap that it was a racially motivated killing. but I'm willing to wait until the evidence comes out a little bit more in detail to make final judgments. Now, this isn't the type of topics that I really wanted to talk about today, but we did lose one of our brethren in the community. And like I said, in the link below, I'm going to give some information on where you can donate some money to the family of the victims of the shooting in California, as well as the family of Jemel. If you want to donate, feel free to click one of those links down there, give a little bit of money, help the family out, help one of our brethren out. So when these type of situations do happen, expect a video that will comment a little bit on the scenario and talk about situations that we can utilize within this industry to make this industry safer, make us better prepared for situations that may happen in this industry. And again, I hope this wasn't too controversial for people that are watching this video. If you did like this video, please make sure you hit that like button. In the meantime, hit that subscribe button. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to learn more about the nightclub business, click this button right here, and you've just been taken beyond the rope.